Hi, I'm Lisa Hayden with Central Kentucky TV, Channel 6, Community Focus on Washington County. Today, being the week of veterans, we are honored today to have Darnell Waters and his wife, Ann Taylor, as our guests. And Darnell served in the Armed Forces, and we want to thank you for your service, Darnell.
Well, at that time, it was a 21-year-old. It was sort of an adventure. I was in the National Guard unit here that was activated during the Korean War, and we went to Korea in 1951.
And how long did you serve, Darnell?
I had an accident. I lost my thumb over there in May of 52, I think. So I was in just a little over a year, and then got sent home and got a medical discharge.
I guess when you were in the National Guard here, you weren't expecting to encounter real fighting, or at least you were hoping not.
There's a story in that too. We had a lot of young men from Washington and Marion County that were activated in that group, and my brother was in the group, and there was the Parrott brothers, or three of them, and Moore brothers, George and Frank. You know, we had a lot of family connections. And, two of the young men who were with us, Glenn Begley and Frank Moore, were just 17 years old, and they were seniors in high school, and they elected to leave their senior year and go with us, so they made a commitment.
Wow.
We had a good group, and we've bonded real well, and it's been a pleasing experience with the camaraderie of the people that we picked up as we went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
I think they were real different because some of them volunteered in November of 50, and they got activated in December, and they left in 51 for Fort Bragg.
January of 51, so it compacted into a short time span.
You knew you were going to be drafted, didn't you?
Yeah, we were all draft age, and if you remember the National Guard, you were draft exempt. So I don't know that was the reason. Well, there were a lot of people that had been active in the National Guard unit here for several years, young people, and it was an outstanding group. The year before we were activated, the service battery of the 623rd Field Artillery Battalion was given the award, the Eisenhower Award, the best unit in the state. So that was
That's
accomplishment. And Colonel Arthur Kelly was the battery commander then, and I give him a lot of credit. He kept things going pretty straight. I always thought he was a good administrator.
I had him on the show. Did you get to see that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay. Yeah, I had him on the show. Of course, he served in 3 wars.
He stayed in the military and made it his career.
And and he's got a book out, and is it about that?
No,
about all these.
I think I can't remember the name of something like Battlefire.
Battlefire.
And it was a sort of a biography of the young people from here, particularly that went to World War II. I can think of 3 or 4 that were in the Battle of Iwo Jima, and he chronicled all of that real well. It's a nice book. It's very productive.
He's going to be at the Kentucky Book Fair in Frankfort coming up, I know. So, with that book, I think.
One of the things about our group, after 25 years, Billy Mays had sort of made it an avocation to find all the people that were in that unit, and we had a reunion after 25 years. And to solidify that a little bit, we were a cadre, and they gave us a lot of draftees to fill us out as a full unit when we went to Fort Bragg. And all those people bonded real well with our local group and have become and maintained an activity in our reunions. We had a 25th reunion, and then we had another one in 5 years, and after that we started having them every other year.
Every 2 years.
Our wives and girlfriends bonded too, and they've enjoyed the camaraderie that we have.
They just celebrated 64 years in September. We had them back here.
October.
They wanted to come back in September. They wanted to come back here for the last time. We'd been in Columbus, Ohio last year. They didn't wait 2 years this time. They felt like they better have it in 1 year.
Well, everybody's in their 80s now, so
But we had a good
time's expedient.
And so now you all, this group then served together, how long now? Well, you had to come home.
Yeah, we went
just 6 months.
went to Korea, and we landed December the 23rd, 1951. I think that's right. After we were shipped out of Fort Bragg, and I came home in May, and that group came home September, October of the same year. And some of those people still had some enlistment to serve, and they stayed in the National Guard. But some of us, like, had their enlistment had run out, so.
And yours was?
Well, mine was a medical discharge.
Okay. So you were in active combat because you said you hurt or something.
Yeah, we. At the time we were in Korea, the 38th Parallel had been pretty well established, but there was still some infantry skirmishes and some artillery fire, and we were an artillery unit. So, yeah, I think we lost one person out of our whole battalion to an artillery fire.
But not from Springfield.
No, we went from Springfield.
Not from Springfield.
But his wasn't a battle.
Yeah, we weren't in the hand-to-hand combat type
your
thing.
thumb thing wasn't a battle.
No, it was an accident.
Because you were handling artillery.
Well,
Or you had to.
the story on that is we had a load of 155 howitzer ammunition that we had taken up to, I think it was A battery, one of the firing batteries. We were a unit that supplied the food and the artillery and things like that. And our truck got stuck in the mud, and on those old 4x4 trucks then, they had a spool of cable on the front, and I was going to pull that cable out to hook it to the truck to try to pull it out, and the driver pushed the lever the wrong way and pinned my thumb against the bumper. So I left a part of me in Korea.
Yeah. Well, I guess, you think about it, and I guess I remember when my own brother turned 18 and had to register for the draft, and we were still involved in Vietnam. And I just remember, I don't know if you all were dating at that point, you and Darnell, or knew each other, but I remember how frightened I was that he would be drafted and have to go to war. And I don't know how you feel as an 18-year-old boy. I don't know what your feelings are. I know what we who were left behind felt. And
I always heard that the military liked their troops to be 18, 19, and 20 years old because they were ready for adventure. And mostly by that age they had reached a certain amount of physical maturity where they were strong men. I have a personal opinion about the men that came back from World War II. Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generation. Those boys really kept this country going and free. They came home from that war, and those were probably the better years in the United States for things to solidify and grow. They were a great generation.
yeah.
The Veterans Program, last Friday up at high school, it's always a wonderful program. Anybody goes would gain from it. And the student body is just unbelievable, their attention they give. And Kenny Begley's daughter, Jenny, gave a little talk about the cost for the family of the being the father, being in the service all the time. And it was quite touching. And then he gave the address that day and did a beautiful job. It was a wonderful program. And they
I
really
normally get
appreciated
to that, but
Yeah.
I had a class reunion over the weekend. I didn't get to attend,
it
but I
was-
know it's a great program.
It,
and I'm-
it is, the student
Yeah.
body and the people that put it on. And then they had a great meal afterwards for the veterans. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
there
good
was a lot of
program.
emotion that day.
We have been married 59 years, and we've known each other,
Since high school.
well, since high school years. We were both active members in the Presbyterian Youth Fellowship group that took in Transylvania Presbytery, which was from Richmond to Camelsville, a streak across there. So we had known each other, well, and even further back than that.
Were you in high school together?
No, I was in Lebanon High,
Okay.
and he was 2 years ahead of me
I
over
was
here.
You were at Springfield High.
Oh, yeah, the old Springfield
That was
High.
Springfield High, yeah.
And
But he played basketball against Lebanon High when we were in high
yeah, a
school.
lot of the
And his
people-
brother was the same age I was too, so we'd known each other too. But we didn't start dating till after I was through college and teaching in Louisville, and he was in pharmacy school in Louisville. And a
Okay.
friend from here got us together for the first date. And after I chased hard, he finally caught on.
So,
But we didn't
Well,
marry to 56.
slow learner.
slow learner. So you were able to, you finished high school before you went off, and then to Korea, and then when you came home, you started.
I used my GI Bill and went to the University of Kentucky College of Pharmacy.
But he'd already finished 3 years of college. Before
Oh,
we
you'd
went
already
into
finished
service.
3 years of college.
Out of high school, I had a basketball scholarship to Lindsey Wilson Junior College, it was then. So I was over in Columbia for 2 years. And from there, I went to Western for 1 year.
On a basketball scholarship.
And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't go back the next year. And then I got in the National Guard and was activated. So things sort of worked out for us in a jigsaw puzzle type of way.
Did you know at that time you were interested in pharmacy before you went off?
Really not. When I came back here on convalescent leave, I was at Fort Knox then. Romeo Nally, I went to the drugstore and hung around quite a bit there, and Romeo Nally influenced me to go to pharmacy school. And I've always been thankful to him for that. And we
Were you
stayed-
working at the drugstore?
I worked at the drugstore a little bit between semesters at college. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Romeo was a good friend and influenced me.
And
Quite a
since
bit.
he was already home, he could start the September semester, on
It,
time.
Yeah, I was-
at UK. Now, but you had graduated college, or you
No,
could
no,
go into
I-
pharmacy before your...
I had all the pre-pharmacy requirements, so I was discharged at Fort Knox one day and went to Louisville and entered the college of pharmacy the next day.
It was
Okay.
UK Pharmacy, but it was held in Louisville then.
It was an extension branch
They
of the
hadn't put
university.
it on their campus yet.
Oh, okay.
From that, I've had a pharmacy license for 55 years.
Wow.
And
Did you come back here after you finished pharmacy school then to practice at the drugstore
we
here?
married the year I graduated.
56.
And she was teaching at Valley High School. And I worked that first year at the Louisville Apothecary downtown in Louisville. And had an opportunity.
In the Brown Hotel?
Yeah.
That's right.
And I had an opportunity to come back to Springfield that summer.
57.
My father had a stroke and my mother was sort of struggling, so I decided I'd come back home, and we've been here ever since.
Well, what do you know?
And we've been active participants in the community.
Oh, for sure. And I think, both of you have, I know, received various awards, a Chamber Award. I think both of you have received the Lifetime Achievement Award with the Chamber. of Commerce. I know that's one award I can think of.
Very surprising.
Yeah.
And she was a BPW Woman of the Year one year, too.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
you're correct.
The Business and Professional Woman of Achievement.
Darnell kept so active too in the Pharmacy Association for Lincoln Trail, and
I was
went over
president
to
of that
Eaton.
one
He was
year.
president one year and
was a
Pharmacist
member.
of the Year one year.
I was a member of the Rotary Club for a number of years and held
Well,
all the offices available in there.
I know. Yes, indeed.
Well, and then
You
he
sure
was on
did.
the board of Mary Immaculate Hospital, and then on the Nazareth, the board for a while there, and I've forgotten what the other one was.
Well-
They were all medical type things.
I've been a member of the Springfield Housing Commission for
Yeah.
Well, you got that big award.
55 years.
Yeah.
It's, longest serving commissioner in the state, longest serving commissioner in the state.
Yeah.
And that's been a good experience because you see people really in need that you can give some help to, and it's worked out real well.
Clarence Click was the one that was the first
Executive
director, and he served with him on the first board, and
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
got it all started, didn't it, with him?
Yeah.
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 And who would have been the mayor at that time? That would have been
Oh, Lord.
Glenn Salmon, or before?
Could have been.
It might have been before
It
Glenn.
was before you were on the city council, and you were on the city council. Weren't you on the city council?
And just for one term, I filled out a term on the city council. And
But I was thinking maybe that was with Glenn.
Oh, gosh,
Oh.
I didn't realize you had served on the city council.
I filled out a term when somebody resigned, and I can't remember
Mr.
who
Bobbitt?
that was. Well, Mr. Bobbitt ended up being the mayor after that, Clell Bobbitt.
Who was that?
Mr. Clell Bobbitt.
We're going back a lot of years.
I know. I'm glad to hear. I mean, those are things I don't know. I know Glenn was, and before I know that Mr. Bobbitt was. Is that?
He was an active person in the tobacco market and
Okay.
warehousing.
Okay.
Miss Robbie was his
Who?
wife.
Okay. Does he have children here?
I don't think they had any
Okay.
children.
Okay. So you, now you all came back here, and what was the name of the drugstore then?
Springfield Drug.
Okay.
Mr. J.B. Williams was the owner,
Okay.
and I worked for him, and then eventually bought part of the store. And when he died, I bought the rest of the store from his
69.
heirs.
Then
How many years did you have this drugstore?
he had the store 30 something
Well, I came back here in '56, so I stayed in that drugstore for
till 88,
till '88
and then he went to work for Rite Aid.
as a pharmacist and then as
Kroger.
owner.
Right. I remember when the store closed, and that was a sad day.
it was-
Maybe not for you, because I know that
Well,
pharmacists, they tell me it's a lot of work to run not only to operate the pharmacy, but you're running the whole store.
We had 3 one-man pharmacies here then, and I was working probably 65 hours a week or something.
Yeah, and the writing became that he couldn't take in another person, and that was too much at that time for the one person. But the ironic thing is, the Springfield Drug Company was started by Mr. J.B. Williams, Mr. Billy Mudd, and my daddy, Theo Walker, in 1929.
Oh, my goodness.
And of course, at the same time, 1929 started the Great Depression, and they couldn't all keep it up. And my dad was a pharmacist and registered pharmacist, and so we left and went to Springfield, Tennessee for a while, and came back and did different things. And he was back and forth at Lebanon for a long time, but it was real different. Then
Now,
we ended
you
up
were
at-
living in Lebanon, when you were living in Lebanon.
No, I was born here. My mother and father were both natives of here. But we
Oh.
moved to Lebanon with
Okay.
him working, and from Lebanon to Campbellsville and Bowling Green and back to Lebanon. But Lebanon was my home from the 5th grade on through high school. And my father and mother both were still living in Lebanon when each one of them died. So
And your father was a pharmacist.
that's right.
Oh, for goodness
A
sake.
little more irony. My dad was working in the county clerk's office when her mother and father were married, and he signed their marriage certificate.
We didn't know that till after we married.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
So we've got a lot of tentacles in,
Oh,
in the
you
community.
sure do.
Well, my father was one of 9, and my mother was one of 6 girls. Well, there was a boy that was the first child that died. And I had lots, and they were all natives of Washington County. So I had a lot of Washington County relatives.
And they all lived here when you all.
Several of
Ma-
the sisters did.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know whether you know the Tapps or not, but their mother was sister of my mother.
Because your
John
maiden
Parker
name was.
my maiden name was
Walker.
Walker, but her name was Thompson.
Okay.
And John Parker Wharton's mother was a sister. And so, there were several.
Was a sister
and
to
Mary Lindsay
you?
Williams, who married
Sister, her,
J.B.
his father.
To his fa- yeah, I was gonna say-
his mother.
My
his
mother.
mother.
Okay.
Yeah, and Steve Hale's father was the oldest of the 9 in Daddy's family. He was a Walker, and then
Yeah.
Daddy was the baby.
Well, for
So
goodness sake.
I had a lot of relatives.
Yeah, yeah.
We came back.
She's
And
got
s-
31 first cousins, and I have 2.
Well, your parents, okay, were here and you grew up here
Yeah.
and went to, okay, and then you played basketball, you said.
High school and basketball, football, and baseball. That was what was available
They
in
played
high
every-
school.
You were
at that-
quite an athlete.
Well,
You didn't have your choice much, did you?
I had more abilities in basketball than I did in the others.
Well, and then his mother, though, was from Western Kentucky. You can tell the story about her coming here to teach.
Yeah, she came here she finished high school in the Murray, Kentucky area in the country, and went to then Murray Normal School for 1 year, and there was a job opening for a teacher in Washington County, 2, and she and her cousin came up here, and I don't even know what year it was, and to teach in Washington County.
About 20.
And at that time, they took her to Tatum Springs out in the north end of the county to teach. And she lived in the old resort hotel out there. And my dad played the violin. And he'd go out there on weekends to play for dances and things like that. So they met out there.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
And her friend that came with her taught up at Fairview.
Fairview, yeah. They
Right up
both
the hill.
stayed in that community for a couple of years.
And would you say your mother's maiden name was?
Darnell.
Oh, Darnell. Well, for goodness
My
sake.
full name is Alan Darnell, but nobody knows Alan Waters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they call you Darny for
Yeah,
short.
yeah.
Well, that is most interesting. So now, when you all married, then Ann Taylor, you went to teach.
No, I had taught.
I mean, you were teaching in Louisville.
I was teaching in Louisville, and I had taught 3 years, and then I went on and taught the first year we married. Then we came back here, and then I didn't teach when the children were little. I went into a,
We made the decision for her to stay home.
and then in the 70s, Everett Hale was with the Board of Education, and they needed a math teacher for a special program called Ag Credit Math for ag students, and I taught that for about 5 years, but it didn't count toward my retirement. It was a different type program, but it was an interesting program, and I enjoyed it. And became very interested in FFA because of that. And later they made me an honorary member of the FFA. And then I went back in '80 and taught for 11 years. So, and I started out in the junior high, but then my last 8 years were at the high school, which was where my math was supposed to be in.
Now, was that when the kids were in, were they in high school
Well,
at that point, or they through?
Beth had graduated in '75 when I took that part-time.
She's our
And
oldest
then,
daughter.
She's the
Okay.
oldest, and Becky would graduate in '77.
Okay.
And then Susan was still in school. Yeah,
Okay.
she didn't graduate till '82, but I never did have her in a class except when I substituted. So she didn't have
But
to.
that gave you a chance to keep an eye on.
Well, they always said they couldn't get by with anything.
Well, Susan inspected her every morning before she went to school to make sure she was dressed correctly.
In case I might have her in class in substitution.
We have 3 daughters. By the
Yeah.
way.
And that, well, and Susan, I know, lives in Lebanon, but the other two, Beth lives in
Woodford County now,
Lexington.
in the Lexington area.
She's
Okay.
moved to the corner of Woodford County and Fayette County now, but she works in Lexington at the Jockey Club. Yeah, she and her husband live in this. They've just moved about, what, 2 or 3 years ago now almost?
It's not full 3 years.
And
I
then
don't
Becky and her husband moved to California, to Bakersfield. They're both geologists. And she had been with Chevron for a lot of years, and they could see they needed to be thinking about moving, and there was a position out there. So, and then Mike is in another area of geology.
He's an environmental protection man. His
So
expertise is in groundwater.
we could drive to Alabama. They lived down there 19 years easily, but we can't quite do that.
Yeah. Yeah, now you're going to have to get on the plane and fly.
We've been
Yeah, that's-
fortunate. They've gotten home at least once or twice a year. So
And how many grandchildren do you have?
we have 6.
6.
Uh-huh.
Susan has 4 and Beth has 2. Becky and Mike don't have any children, so
Okay.
yeah.
The grandchildren have been a real plus. We've spent a lot of time at ball games and things
Well,
like
you
that.
all have always supported, I know, the Washington County ball teams.
Yep.
You've always attended all the football games. And, you've always been good supporters in the community as a whole. You know, as you said, you've been active in Rotary Club and Women's Club and numerous other capacities, active in your church, Presbyterian
Yeah, it's
Church.
Down there
And-
particularly, treasurer for I don't know how many years and different things, and we talked Bible school and all. But the ball games, he called the ball games after J.W. James gave it up.
I did the public addressing
He
at
did
the
the
ball
public
game
address
for
system.
a number of years.
And John
Well, until-
Sellos and his brothers were his spotters, and he had to give it up when he went to work for Rite Aid because they
Night
stayed
game.
open so late that he couldn't make it up there in time.
Oh.
He was at the game, but it had
I enjoyed that.
he really liked it.
Oh, I know, yeah. And then, of course, you were at Rite Aid, and then you and Kroger's, and then you substituted down here at
Medicine shop.
at the medicine shop for Lisa. And now, but now are you retired now, or
Well, for the last 3 years, I have not renewed my pharmacist licenses. You know, if some of the pharmacy one-man stores particularly know that you have a license and are available, then they'll ask if you'll fill in. And I didn't feel competent anymore. I couldn't.
To go to a different store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
travel too a little bit?
And you don't hurt feelings. If you don't have your license, you're not going to do any good to them.
Yeah.
They've got to have a licensed person there to open stores. So.
Yeah. Well, now you just got plenty of time to go visit the grandchildren, and I know you're still active in a million things. I know you come to the Earth Day celebration, and you with the New Pioneers. I see you at their functions, and
we still live here.
you still live here, and you're just as active as you ever were.
But we're much slower, and we don't get to all the ones we used to.
Yeah. Well, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your being here today, and I just you've just been such an asset to the community,
Well,
and I want to thank you for that, and I also want to thank you for your service to our country, and we very much appreciate that.
It's been a fun 59 years.
59 years.
59 years.
58 back here.
Yeah.
First year we lived in
Yeah. So thank you both. I appreciate it very much. Excuse me.
Our pleasure.